Did you ever feel uncomfortable at all in your dealings with Justin?
No, not at all.
Blake Lively just suffered a full-blown meltdown after The Hollywood Reporter exposed her lies in public's court with evidence.
I hope that the truth comes out, you know? I hope that the innocent parties are proven as innocent and we move on.
Poor Blake really thought she could twist the narrative, but the receipts are loud, the facts are louder, and not even her Pinterest perfect image can survive this.
And this was really supposed to be a watershed moment for Justin in his directing career.
Turns out, when you play the victim and the villain at the same time, the only thing you win is public humiliation. And honestly, it made my heart ache that the filming of It Ends With Us was never supposed to be a battlefield. In fact, it was introduced as a dream collaboration. Justin Baldoni taking the reins as director and producer of what could have been his breakout as a serious filmmaker, and Blake Lively stepping into a leading role that would supposedly redefine her career.
I would say I felt more comfortable being around Justin than a lot of film directors in my experience.
Based on a New York Times bestseller and touching on heavy issues like domestic violence, the project had every ingredient for prestige. And with a cast that could sell tickets just by blinking and a plot that promised emotional depth, it should have been smooth sailing.
He was one of the few directors I've worked for that was very kind and respectful.
From the beginning, Justin brought more than just his camera skills to set. A devout follower of the Baha'i faith, he infused the production with spiritual energy, prayer sessions, emotional check-ins, and a soft-spoken leadership style. Colleagues said he genuinely cared about the emotional well-being of the cast and crew.
I got an email from Justin, and then he called me out of nowhere and pitched to me the vision of the film. And so immediately I bought in and was like, yeah, I'm here for it. Like, you seem like you care a lot about the vision of what we're trying to do here, and you're not in it for fame.
It wasn't your typical high-stress Hollywood set. Early behind-the-scenes clips even showed Blake and Justin laughing between takes, sharing jokes, and vibing like two people genuinely enjoying the work. There was chemistry, there was ease, and there was no visible sign of what was brewing just beneath the surface.
I think that there was a massive compromise in terms of Justin's original vision for the film.
But as shooting progressed, something started shifting. Blake, who had executive producer credit, wasn't just there to perform. She started voicing concerns, and those concerns turned into corrections. The tone on set started to change. Sources say what began as collaborative energy turned tense fast, with disagreements over tone, lines, even the spiritual undertones Justin brought to his creative process. Things didn't boil over immediately, but the friction was there. What nobody expected was how dramatically things would escalate after the Hollywood writers' strike hit.
No more pretending that you can speak to dead people. It was about watching pornography. It was not burning certain types of incense. It was a long, broad list of things.
When productions around the country paused, the set of It Ends With Us was no exception. But when filming resumed, it didn't pick up where it left off. Blake came back. And not empty-handed. She arrived with what insiders called a laundry list of demands, and these weren't your standard writer requests for lighting or dialogue tweaks.
I have a folder, a disk, a hard drive.
These were sweeping changes aimed straight at the core of the film's tone and structure. She wanted religious language restricted. She wanted certain phrases cut. She wanted limits on how characters, especially male ones, spoke about women. In short, she wanted a reset, and one that didn't just tweak the edges, but reshaped the entire center.
No. I mean, it's hard to think of a similar situation in recent memory. You know, the director is the general on the film.
Now, to be clear, these weren't quiet suggestions made in a corner meeting. This was a full-court press. Crew members noted that she came with the authority of someone who believed she was now the primary decision-maker. And the truly wild part? She allegedly began traveling with a hard drive, loaded with film footage, and started making changes while flying between locations. Yes, while the director was still very much alive and on the project, the actress was cutting scenes, reviewing takes, and piecing together versions that better fit her own vision.
The biggest thing you can do, and the most accepting thing in the court of public opinion, is to own up to it.
From that point on, the dynamic flipped. Justin Baldoni, who had nurtured this project from the start, was now operating more like a consultant than a creative lead. According to insiders, he was pushed out of key decisions, and if anyone questioned the sudden shift, the response was clear. Blake was in charge now. She had the fame, the production credit, and the connections. Justin may have brought the heart, but Blake brought the brand power, and she knew it.
If you've got enough money and resources, you can do this to anyone you want.
You could destroy anyone, absolutely, anyone.
The divide between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively didn't just unfold in legal filings or cryptic Instagram quotes. It was physically embodied on premiere night. On February 13th, 2025, the It Ends With Us premiere at the Regency Village Theater in Los Angeles was expected to be a celebratory event for the film's creators.
There is absolutely evidence that something was afoot there. And what I mean by that is there were, recently created accounts at that time that just focused on her, that was attacking her, not the movie, but her.
But what went down was anything but united. Blake Lively arrived like royalty. Photographers caught her in a shimmering plum-colored gown, flanked by stylists, publicists, and what looked like a multi-tiered PR team. She smiled for the cameras, gave interviews, and stood center stage for every group photo. Her husband, Ryan Reynolds, stood just a few steps behind, letting her bask in full solo spotlight.
I will compare it to terrorism. You're being terrorized.
But while Blake was commanding the red carpet, the film's own director, Justin Baldoni, was nowhere to be seen. He wasn't standing off to the side. He wasn't giving interviews. He wasn't even on the main floor. According to multiple sources from Variety and Deadline, Justin was physically placed in a basement screening room, away from the flashbulbs, the press, and the very audience there to celebrate his work. For context, this is the same man who secured the rights to the film in 2020 and worked closely with author Colleen Hoover and spent over 2 years assembling cast, crew, and funding. And yet, on the film's biggest night, he watched the movie like a guest at a private test screening.
So I really feel that both sides are looking at themselves as the aggrieved individuals that's fighting the bigger party.
The move wasn't subtle, and Hollywood noticed. Veteran producer Lisa Tabak, speaking anonymously to The Hollywood Reporter on February 15th, said, "This was a humiliation, plain and simple. No director gets sent to the basement unless someone high up signs off on it." The story was quickly picked up by entertainment watchdogs like Pop Crave, Just Jared, and BuzzFeed Celeb, who all noted the same thing. Blake was now the face of It Ends With Us, and Justin was being slowly erased.
I think in film, we always want our work to have a meaningful impact. And a lot of us in film do it because we care. And to see it be overtaken by this was definitely a little bit sad.
So how does a director get sidelined at his own premiere? Sources close to the production pointed fingers at Ryan Reynolds' company, Max Effort, which had reportedly taken over the marketing campaign weeks before the premiere. According to a leaked pitch deck obtained by The Wrap in late January, Max Effort was responsible for influencer rollouts, social tie-ins, and the final promotional materials. Baldoni's own production house, Wayfarer Studios, was noticeably absent from all final press kits and media interviews. From teaser trailers to YouTube interviews, the messaging had clearly shifted. This wasn't a Justin Baldoni film anymore. It was a Blake Lively event.
I hope that the truth comes out, I hope that the innocent parties are proven as innocent and we move on.
Entertainment journalist Peter Kiefer, who investigated the feud for The Hollywood Reporter, described the red carpet optics as a case study in power imbalance. In his February 22nd article, Kiefer stated, "The moment Blake Lively walked the carpet without her director, and the director was 30 feet underground, was the moment this film went from collaborative art to controlled narrative." Multiple publicists noted how rare it is for a director to be this absent, especially in a project this high profile, especially when they're also one of the producers.
In the next moment, she's like, oh no, she's doing this she's carrying this burden
for all the other victims out there.
But that wasn't the only moment where Blake's PR machine showed signs of precision and damage control. It turns out that what happened on set, especially during the now infamous slow dance scene, was about to hit the courtroom. And then, the internet.
People magazine, everything there used to be so pro Blake Lively, and I think they had someone probably sitting there going through them and deleting the ones that were negative.
In her initial court filing submitted to the Southern District of New York on January 9th, 2025, Blake accused Baldoni of improvising intimate gestures without consent. Specifically, she claimed he kissed her forehead, caressed her arm, and leaned in closer than scripted during a slow dance sequence. Her legal team painted it as a breach of boundaries and a violation of the agreed intimacy coordination. The media picked it up fast. From Variety to TMZ, headlines labeled Baldoni's actions as unapproved and spontaneous.
So she says he's been harassing her, and they bring in some team, and he says, whatever you want, I will do it or not do it, you tell me.
But 2 weeks later, leaked set footage changed everything. A 43-second video clip, first published by the Daily Beastin, January 24th, showed the scene in full context. Blake is seen smiling, holding Baldoni's hand and gently guiding his forehead toward hers. There is no visible sign of discomfort, hesitancy, or surprise. In fact, her body language is relaxed and her performance fluid. Forensic film analyst Marissa Kwan, hired by Entertainment Law Review, stated, "The gestures appear choreographed, and Blake Lively appears to not only comply, but subtly initiate."
I'm going to give you a little background on it, and then you will be obsessed with it. And I'll tell you, there's a reason why conservatives in particular are following this so closely. It makes sense to me.
Following the leak, something telling happened. Blake's legal team filed an amended complaint on February 2nd, and this time, the description of the slow dance scene was different. Gone were the strong statements about improvised physical contact. Instead, the new version softened the language, replacing unscripted with unexpected, and emphasizing emotional discomfort over physical violation. Legal journalist Micah Brandt commented, "That shift in language is what we call a backpedal in court." It also marked the first public indication that Blake's case had started to lose traction, not because of lack of effort, but because of lack of consistency.
I think they instantly started spinning. I believe that they are going to be able to prove in court that this was personal. Ryan Reynolds versus Justin Baldoni, all of the evidence points to that.
Critics were quick to pounce. On February 5th, commentator Yvette Nichols wrote in Vulture, "If Blake's lawsuit hinges on moments like this, where video evidence contradicts her own sworn claims, she's not just losing credibility. She's redefining how we see credibility in Hollywood legal disputes." And the internet? It didn't hold back. The hashtag #SlowDanceScam began trending on X within 24 hours of the video leak, with over 75,000 posts mocking the disparity between the legal claim and the footage.
All the women out there that are watching, no matter what you do in life, you never, ever, ever go full Amber Heard. The conclusion here, I have said this since before, long before this ever broke out between her and Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively is not a good person.
For Baldoni's team, this was a gift. His attorney, Brian Friedman, released a public statement to Variety on February 3rd. "We welcome any and all footage that shows the reality of what happened on that set. Our position has always been transparency, and the truth will speak for itself."
He told us that Justin Baldoni claims she tried to take over his movie because she has a history of saying, okay, I'll be the star, but what I secretly want to do is direct it and edit it and produce it. I want all the roles for me and only me. I want full control because I am a controlling bully.
And with that, what was originally framed as misconduct quickly became a courtroom centerpiece for the defense. Not only had Blake accused him of actions that appeared consensual in footage, but she also rewrote the allegation once that footage became public. In legal terms, it was an avoidable blunder. In public relations terms, it was catastrophic. Because when the truth is time-stamped on video and backed by receipts, every rewritten claim feels less like a correction and more like a collapse.
There's a version of this where Justin Baldoni was just Michael Scott in The Office, where he's just saying inappropriate things, but not with any ill will. But Blake Lively, much more different culturally, more about the power and thinking that this is about the feminist Me Too movement. How dare you do this?
Blake Lively's legal case against Justin Baldoni took a dramatic turn on February 2, 2020, when her attorneys filed an amended complaint in the Southern District of New York, just 48 hours before the filing deadline. At first glance, it looked like a routine legal update, but once legal analysts and media watchdogs got their hands on the new documents, what they found wasn't just a revised claim, it was a redacted, restructured, and strategically sanitized narrative. Several key text messages, originally included in Blake's first complaint filed on January 9th, were now missing. These weren't minor omissions. They were entire conversational threads that painted a more casual, even friendly, picture of her interactions with Baldoni during filming. In one of the original exhibits, Blake could be seen joking about a wardrobe malfunction during a scene, thanking Baldoni for being chill and non-creepy. That message? Gone. Another now-deleted message involved a group text with a producer and intimacy coordinator, where Blake responded, "All good, feels natural after a rehearsal." Also erased.
The first thing I noticed is, as I compared it to the last one, a lot of texts were actually removed. This is the new document, as I made a note here, but as you'll notice here, this is the original complaint. As you can see, that first text is still there, but she removed, they removed quite a few texts.
Legal journalist Tasha Grant, who reviewed both versions of the lawsuit for Entertainment Law Journal, noted that at least 19 unique text exchanges were removed. Many of these, she wrote, directly contradict the emotional tone presented in the amended filing. What was initially a story of on-set discomfort had, in some instances, been framed as professional camaraderie.
He doesn't realize how lucky he is right now. We need to press on him how effing lucky. The whispering in the ear, the connotations, the JFC, other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there's just so much.
So what was the official excuse? Blake's team issued a one-sentence footnote buried in the document, stating that the messages had been understood to be lawfully obtained, maintained, and produced by Jones Works. That's it. No rationale for the sudden deletions, no clarification about which messages were considered inadmissible or inaccurate, and no explanation as to why the new complaint cherry-picked only the fragments that supported her current version of events. This didn't go unnoticed. By February 5th, multiple legal analysts were questioning whether Blake's legal strategy had backfired. On Court TV Live, analyst Derek Pollard stated, "This is a textbook example of narrative manipulation. You don't delete half a conversation and pretend it didn't exist unless you're worried about how it reads in court." His colleague, attorney Monica Baines, echoed the sentiment on her podcast Legal Breakdown, pointing out that the omissions painted a troubling picture of a shifting narrative, not a stable account of misconduct.
As TMZ is now reporting, of course witnesses are staying anonymous. They're terrified of threats and bullying. Now this smells like Blake's PR team trying to spin why they're not coming forward.
Then came the receipts. Baldoni's team, already knee-deep in PR fallout from the slow dance scene controversy, wasted no time publishing the original, unedited message threads through media partners like Deadline and Variety. These included time-stamped screenshots, context from the full thread, and even image metadata to verify authenticity. What the public saw wasn't some vague he said, she said. It was evidence of selective storytelling, and it wasn't a good look. In one of the republished threads, Blake is seen discussing a planned reshoot, saying, "Just improv it a bit. I trust your instincts." This message had been scrubbed from the amended lawsuit, replaced with a vague complaint about unsolicited physicality during that same scene. The contrast between what was claimed in court and what actually happened in writing, impossible to miss.
Even if Justin was too huggy or whatever the heck, or said she was sexy, none of this warrants this. And you still have to atone for what you did.
And then, just when things couldn't spiral faster, the internet received its gasoline-soaked match, the Hollywood Reporter cover. On February 22nd, the Hollywood Reporter dropped its most controversial issue of the year. The cover illustration? A cartoon of Blake Lively in a sleek Hollywood gown, using a slingshot to hurl a projectile directly at Justin Baldoni's face. exaggerated, ridiculous, and brilliantly symbolic. But what made this piece land so hard wasn't the artwork. It was the feature article inside, written by veteran investigative journalist Peter Kiefer, who had been tracking the Blake versus Justin legal saga for months. Kiefer's article didn't just recap court filings, it dissected Blake's entire media strategy, exposing contradictions, examining redacted evidence, and questioning her moral credibility. He compared her legal tactics to trial by press, arguing that the moment the facts didn't align with the headline, her entire public persona began to collapse.
Guys, she goes in and there's a lot of Twitter complaints, some of which, 2 or 3 of them are horrid and shouldn't be there, but some of them are spot on.
Blake's camp fired back immediately. A statement released by her publicist, Leslie Sloan, accused The Hollywood Reporter of perpetuating sexist tropes and mocking a woman for defending her bodily autonomy. But the reaction online? It wasn't outrage, it was laughter. The hashtag #slingshot scandal trended on X, formerly Twitter, for 72 hours straight. Influencers, legal bloggers, and even a few verified Hollywood insiders joined the pile-on. One viral tweet by @GenOnJustice read, "Blake Lively calling this cartoon sexist is like throwing a tantrum at a caricature artist. Girl, it's satire, and you walked right into it." But the article itself didn't rely on jokes. It cited court filings, included timeline inconsistencies, and pointed out how deleted messages and softened claims in the amended complaint suggested a reactive, not factual, legal strategy. The piece even included an off-the-record quote from a crew member, who said, "The moment Blake took over set, Justin went from director to set decoration."
There's a lot of comments that she puts in here that you're just like, why would you want to take over someone's movie? The outfits in this end are so out of touch. No, we don't want to watch bullies like Blake.
Worse still, industry insiders began quietly distancing themselves. A producer from one of Blake's upcoming Netflix projects told Insider Weekly that execs were reconsidering her promotional role. And another source within Sony Pictures said, "We're watching how this lawsuit plays out before we commit to future campaigns." The Hollywood Reporter cover did what Blake's PR team feared most. It reframed her not as a brave whistleblower, but as a controlling figure using outrage to cover her tracks. And unlike fan speculation or online gossip, this time the hit came from one of the industry's most respected publications, with cold documentation to back it up. So while Blake's legal team tried to tighten their claims and control the message, what they got instead was a media disaster that turned her credibility into a punchline. Because when your case depends on curated texts, vague accusations, and PR spin, and then someone brings receipts and a cartoon, the court of public opinion doesn't take kindly to missing context.
Well, they were. I was told they were lawfully obtained. Yikes. Big yikes.
When the legal war between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni exploded into public view, it didn't just stay in the courtroom, it metastasized into a digital assault, one that experts now say might not have been organic at all. In early March 2025, a set of leaked internal texts sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. These messages, reportedly exchanged between members of Baldoni's crisis communications team to launch a targeted PR hit job, with one very clear goal: bury Blake. According to the texts obtained by the Daily Mail and later verified by Variety, the plan included full social account takedowns, reputation destabilization, and meme rollouts. One staffer even bragged, "All of this will be most importantly untraceable." The language wasn't subtle. There were references to social combat, message control phases, and even a line stating he wants to feel like he can bury anyone. That he, presumably referring to Baldoni, though his attorneys have since denied his direct involvement.
And there is not a shred of evidence to support it. Really? Really? Really?
By the time these messages hit the press, the online landscape had already shifted. Following Blake's amended complaint and the Hollywood Reporter cover, a wave of relentless digital backlash began flooding social media. Twitter, now X, accounts began posting hundreds of threads accusing Blake of hypocrisy, manipulation, and weaponizing feminism. On TikTok, creators began dissecting old clips of Blake in interviews, labeling her expressions and tone as PR-trained gaslighting. And Instagram Reels mocking the slow dance scene lawsuit racked up millions of views. But what made all of this deeply suspicious wasn't just the timing, it was the mechanics. On March 12th, Christopher Boozy, CEO of Bot Sentinel, confirmed to The Verge that his company had identified bot-driven troll farms targeting Blake Lively across multiple platforms. Boozy's analysis showed that many of the accounts posting identical anti-Blake content were created in bulk during the week of February 25th, right after the amended complaint and the Hollywood Reporter cover story.
It was just because of the way he is culturally with his religion. I want to go through some of these pieces because hear me out. Here it is. So from the outset, the feud's been framed as the newest chapter in Hollywood's ongoing fight for gender equality.
Boozy explained, "We observed coordinated account behavior, recycled hashtags, and AI-generated phrasing. This wasn't a spontaneous backlash. This had structure." He emphasized that while they could not confirm who funded or initiated the campaign, it bore striking resemblance to high-budget PR warfare tactics used in past political smear operations. Meanwhile, Baldoni's legal team insists that while the texts about the smear campaign were real, none of it was ever implemented. But the overlap between what was discussed and what occurred online left critics skeptical. The question quickly became not whether a digital smear was launched, but who paid for it and how far it went. Because if a $175,000 campaign to bury a public figure doesn't need to be executed fully to have impact, then Blake's digital downfall may have already been bought and paid for, whether anyone admits it or not. So what do you think? Was this justice or just a Hollywood takedown dressed in legal jargon? Let us know below.